about the strategic management, including the strategic planning process. So, katong lima ka buok. First is identifying the vision mission, the external assessment. We also discussed the internal assessment. And then the last discussion or last week, we discussed the step number 4 and number 5, which is to develop the strategies or formulate strategies and implement those strategies. So today we're going to discuss the rest of the topics about the strategic management. So we will discuss the other planning tools and techniques that the management can use to do the external assessment and internal assessment. Then we will also discuss about the Boston Consulting Group or the BCG growth share matrix, as well as the benefits of planning and its limitations. Okay, so this is the part 4 of our online meeting. So first we will tackle about the other planning tools and techniques that we can use to perform step number 2 and step number 3 of the strategic planning. So we have the situation analysis or the systematic collection and evaluation of the external and internal forces that can affect the organization's performance and choice of strategies, and assessing the organization's current and future strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So SWOT analysis is actually an example of a situation analysis. And and in the external analysis, so we can use the PEST analysis. Okay, so now it is called the Pastel Analysis. So PEST stands for the political, economic, social, and technological factors, while the Pastel Analysis adds the letter E and L, or it could be changed L and E. So the other E stands for environmental factors and L stands for the legal factors. So this is used to examine in the process of doing strategic planning for the organization. So when we say political factors, so it involves a way, okay? It involves the way the government behaves. So factors involve the way a government of a country behaves. So examples of mga political factors, mga trade regulations, pricing regulations, and tariffs, wage legislation such as mga minimum wage requirements, political stability of the country or its instability. So its stability will affect the citizens' spending habits. So if you have heard the news about the Myanmar nga incident, so military is now occupying the position. So they dethroned their mga elected officials. So military is now the one governing Myanmar, and people are protesting. The civilians are protesting. So as a sign of protest, so a lot of businesses closed their operations. So citizens have fewer options to buy, where to buy. So it's the stability or instability of the country will have an effect on the business climate. So we have the product labeling requirements that the company must be adhered. So example ani sa Philippines, we have the cigarettes, di ba? So the DOH implemented a labeling requirement which requires the cigarette companies to to put a picture of kanang mga uh, diseases or sickness caused mga by cigarette smoking. So na dito yung mga lung cancer and other sickness. Industrial health and safety regulations, so it must be followed all the times. Otherwise, if the inspector will found out nga the company is not following regulations, then they can face heavy penalties and a possible closure of the business. Economic factors include the exchange rates, the inflation, interest rates, and economic growth or contractions that and the effects that they can have on the business. So all of those economic factors may or may not affect the business. So examples of economic factors are the following. So you have the skill levels of the workforce and the cost of labor, the unemployment rate within the market, because if unemployment is high, demand will be depressed. So a lot of business owners and investors are looking at this data, economic data, unemployment rate, kay in the consumption. So a lot of individuals mas maka-afford yun ang mga empleyado or katong na mga salary or perhaps katong na mga business. But the business owners are dili na nakadaghan compared to the employees in the country. So an increase in the unemployment rate, so meaning daghay mga tao nga walay trabaho compared last year. So it is a bad news. It's because if dagamay ang mga empleyado karon compared last year, then there's a possibility nga less ang consumers. Okay? So kung less ang consumers, less ang demand. So less profitable ang mga business, and if the businesses are less profitable, then the economy is down. Whereas if the unemployment rate decreased or niubos ang unemployment rate, it means that there are a lot of employees working now compared before. So it is a good news. It's because the businesses and investors expect that there will be more consumers in the market now compared last time or last year. So it will increase the consumption. So more money will be circulating in the economy. The stage in the business cycle the country is in. So it also affects how great the demand will be. So for example, our country is experiencing a recession. So when you say recession, there is a slowdown of the economic activity in the country. So the recession could also affect the business operations. Another is the economic system in the countries where the business operates. So kung unsa nga type of economic system or type of government that country the country have also affects how the business in that country will operate, or what is the business climate in the country. So for example, lahi ang in a communist form of government, so naay businesses but they expect that the government will intervene in their business. Whereas in the capitalist form of government, so the private entities or the individuals are very independent, although the government has regulations, but as their business operations, so tanan na decision sa mga private entities. While in a socialist form of government, so key enterprises are being managed by the government, such as mga telco, mga mining, and even mga utility companies. Other than that, then it is managed by other individuals or private entities. And then any intervention by the government in the market. So if the government intervenes in the market, let's say the government is against mining, so it will also have a negative impact to the mining business operations. Social factors refer to the culture in a country, the population growth rate, the average age of the population and the age distribution, and as well as the attitudes of the citizens towards things such as mga health and careers. So the social factors determine kung unsay kasagaran niya classification sa population. Is it an aging population or a working age population? So when we say aging population, so most of the people there are elderly. So gamay rang ang employees, so gamay rin manarbaho. Whereas if the population is composed of youth or mga working age people, so that is a good news or that is a good indication because um, mas daghan ang nangita, dagay nag-contribute towards the economic growth. Unlike in the aging population, so gamay ra ang nanarbaho, pero you have to pay for their pensions regardless kung mutrabaho sila or dili. So examples of social factors, we have the demographics. So demographics is used to see where the country people live and work. So in the Philippines, for example, so a lot of people are residing and working in the big cities. So particularly in the Metro Manila. So I think 60% of the total population of the Philippines comes from Luzon. So education level, so as education plays a major role in what kind of work people do and how much disposable income they have. So education level also affects the employment of the people. So the higher the education level of the people, so they expect a higher position. So higher position means higher disposable income. Then you have attitudes of the population toward the environment. So if the population is against they don't care for the environment, so na siya epekto sa business. Leisure interest of the population, so are the people not busy enough para makaadtog mga travel or recreation. So especially if the business belongs in that sector, so tourism, so ang mga tao dili na ganahan mag-travel, so it will have an impact. Technological factors help a business determine what technology to focus on the future. So new developments in technology affect how the business operates on a day-to-day basis and how it delivers its services and interact with its customers and suppliers. So this pandemic, so we have observed that new technologies are being used in the delivery of the services. So just like what we have now, so we are now using the online class nga way of teaching with the help, of course, with the technologies. So like the Google Meet or Zoom and Neo LMS or any learning management system. So these are the new technologies, although they have already exist in the past. However, it is now that uh, it is used heavily or regularly. A lot of organizations are now implementing mga work from home. So the work from home can only be possible with the help of the system or the internet. And we can also sell online. We can buy online with the use of the new technology. We can also order or buy our food and have it delivered in our homes through technology. So although pandemic have a negative nga mga impacts sa atong kinabuhi, but this pandemic also brought new technologies that we have not tried to use, but we now appreciate because of its convenience. So technology can impact the structure of the company's value chain. So you do not need anymore to, for example, if you want to buy raw materials or look for the cheapest uh, raw materials, you can just search online, or if you want to look for customers, you can also search online. So technology can affect the cost structure of the business. So some technologies also help the business reduce its cost by increasing the efficiency and quality and reduce mga defects or waste. So it can reduce the cost and it will lead to higher profitability. Another tool that we can use for the situation analysis is called the competitive analysis. So the competitive analysis analyze the strengths and weaknesses of the competitors, the demographics and needs of the market in which the business operates. So who are your usual customers? Strategies to improve the company's position in the marketplace. So how will you position your product in the market, or how will you compete in the market? Impediments to the companies entering new markets. So this is also known as the barriers to entry. Okay, so there are businesses nga dili nimo basta-basta masugdan because probably it needs a large amount of capital, or it is strictly regulated and it needs approval of SEC and other government agencies. So for example, mga mining companies or mga uh, uh, logging industries. So we have barriers the company can erect to limit the competitor's ability to erode the company's place in the market. So perhaps nakapatent ang product sa atong competitors, that's why we cannot sell the same. So basta nakapatent ang product, the other persons or the other entities cannot sell the same product for a number of years. They cannot also copy and imitate that product. So if you notice, so the competitive analysis can help the business or the organization uh, create the business level strategies. So in the competitive analysis, it also includes the competitors. So you have to define the competitors, both the direct and indirect competitors. We have to analyze the strengths and weaknesses of the competitors, as well as our own internal strengths and weaknesses. We also analyze the customer needs and wants and study the impediments to the market or the barriers to entry, such as the patents, the high startup cost or the high capital needed, or a high level of knowledge required for success. So such as uh, establishing an IT firm or mga pharmaceutical companies. So dili ka basta-basta maka-hire o makatukod without the required nga qualification or knowledge. Then developing a strategic plan that reflects the findings from the above activities. So from these activities, we can include that in coming up with our strategic plan. Next, we have the contingency planning and scenario planning. So contingency planning is the planning that a company develops to prepare for possible events. So in a way, it is the what if. Okay. So it is sometimes called the scenario planning, and it considers alternatives that enables the organization to respond quickly to some uncertain future events. So usually ang mga dili controlled sa entities are the external events that are often unpredictable. So this is where the risk management can help by helping the company come up with a risk register that specifies different action plans for different risks. So whether to avoid the risk, to accept, to mitigate or lessen, or perhaps we can transfer the risk, or there's a need to avoid the risk. So it is shown in the risk register. Now we have the product life cycle. So we have to understand this first so that we can understand the next nga topic, which is the Boston Consulting Group growth share matrix. So this product life cycle is not only applicable to a product, but also for a business and even the economy. So the product, so we have the introduction stage, the growth stage, maturity stage, and the declining stage or the saturation stage. So in the introduction stage of the product, so it is the launching, and usually at this stage the sales grow slowly because people are not yet aware of the product. So at this stage we have to employ the informative advertising, so to make the people aware of our product, and usually it has no profit, okay, less or zero profit. And then if the market is already aware of the product, then the sales start to grow rapidly. So the advertising that will be used would be the persuasive, so persuading the market to buy your product instead of your competitors. Prices may be reduced, so to attract more consumers, and the profits start coming. So this classification falls under the growth stage. However, the product and business undergoes the critical stage called the maturity stage. So it is where the sales does not increase. It increased, but the growth is very slow. The competition is very intense because there are a lot of there are now more competitors in the market. Competitive or promotional pricing is used. The advertising expenditure is very high because you need to invest in the advertising to sustain the growth, and the profits may soon start to fall as the product enters the saturation stage. So if your product, if na observe nimo nga ang product is ni undergo na og maturity stage, then para malikayan ang pag-decline ana, this is the time where you need to upgrade your product or to innovate it. Otherwise, if you fail to innovate your product and service, then it will undergo the declining stage. Okay, so in the declining stage, so the sales will fall, the product will lose its appeal, or the market does not anymore prefer the product. There's a steep competition in the market. Perhaps the advertising is reduced and then possibly stopped. And if it will continue to fall, then the production may be stopped in the future. So example of products nga ni undergo og maturity stage nga wala nag-innovate are katong mga Nokia nga cellphones. So Nokia is previously the leading cell phone company in the world. So I think almost all Filipinos owns uh, cell phone. I mean the Nokia cell phone. I think mga years 1990s to 2000s. Nokia failed to innovate its cell phone because there's a time opportunity nga makig-partner sila with Google with its Android technology. However, they refused they do not pursue the partnership. So that's why the Nokia undergo maturity, and then the market saturated, and now Nokia is no longer the top leading cell phone company. So the market now prefers those cell phones with Android technology and technology nga gihimo sa Apple. So other products, so even mga shampoos, mga sabon. So if you notice, if they could not innovate their product, they just change the label or the logo or the brand perhaps para lang bag-o sa pananaw sa mga tao. So what they are avoiding is the product nga may maabot sa declining cycle stage. So Boston Consulting Group or the BCG Growth Share Matrix. So it is a method of analyzing a company's portfolio of products to determine where each product is in its life cycle. So the BCG Growth Share Matrix is used when the company has lots of businesses or lots of products under its portfolio. So the BCG was developed by the Boston Consulting Group in the 1970s. So it assists the corporations in analyzing the life cycles of the product lines in order to make better decisions about allocation of resources in the planning. So there are four symbols in the BCG growth share matrix. So the first symbol is called the star. So it is a product in the or product or business in the industry that has a high market growth rate. So taas ang growth rate and then the product has a high market share. So if the product has high market share, then it is capable of generating substantial revenue. Another symbol in the BCG growth share matrix is the question mark. So it is a product in an industry that has a high market growth rate, but the product has a low market share. So taas iyang potential to grow later. However, the product currently experience a low market share because a lot of people are not yet aware of the product. So in a rapidly growing market, the question mark sales also grow rapidly. So question mark produces products consume a great deal of cash for investment. So it needs a lot of money para i-maintain or i-sustain. However, the cash generated by the question mark uh, is low because of its low market share. Next symbol is called the cash cow. So it is a product or business in the maturity stage that has a low market growth rate. So low ang iyang market growth rate, but the product has a high market share. So these are the usual products nga famous na sa market and is regularly consumed by the market. So the cash cows generate more cash than they consume. So less ang imong investment or less imong expense anang nga mga business or products, but it generates a lot of cash. So they are regarded as boring, but any company would be glad to have them. So I will explain nga nung ang mga company would still be glad to have the cash cow. So the last symbol is called the dog. So it is a product or business in a mature industry where it has a low market growth. So it does not grow anymore, but uh, it grows, but the rate is very uh, small, and the product has low market share. So people does not want to, or fewer people now wants to buy the product. A dog neither consumes many resources. So dili kayo dako iyang investment. However, it does not also generate cash. So what to do with those businesses under the star, the question mark, the cash cow, and the dog? So according to the BCG matrix, the natural life cycle for a business unit or a product is question mark. So it will start, the product starts as a question mark, or those products or businesses with a high market growth but low market share. And then eventually it will evolve into star, or a condition where the business or product has a high market share and high growth rate. And then eventually it will become cash cow. So a cash cow has a low growth rate but high market share. and then eventually the cash cow will be saturated. It becomes a dog, or a condition where the business or product has a low market share and also low growth rate. However, if the question mark is not invested well, or it's not managed well, it becomes also a dog. So mahimo siyang kung gay na, 'di ba, it's the question mark is low market share but high growth rate. But if it's not invested well, or it's not managed well, then it becomes a dog, so low market share and low growth rate. So any diversified company or mga conglomerates with a balanced portfolio will have some stars, some question marks, and some cash cows. So if there are dogs, so the rational thing to do is to eliminate, okay, or to sell those businesses, or perhaps stop the operations of those businesses. The star's high market growth rate and high market share and high growth rate create a sense of future income stability. The question marks have the potential to become stars if they receive the necessary investment, and the cash cows, usually the role of the cash cow, although dili na kayo inana iyang kataas iyang growth rate, but a company will still want to keep the cash cows because the cash that they can generate from these businesses will be used to fund the future growth of the stars and the question marks. So samtang naa pa ang cash cow, wala pa na himong dog. So the company would use the cash to invest the stars, to invest in the stars and in the question marks. So this is the diagram for the BCG growth share matrix. So sa taas, this is the relative market share, or those with a high relative market share can generate more cash. So those businesses or symbols under the low market share are question marks and the dog. And then this side, we have the market growth rate. So if there is a potential for growth, so usually it needs a lot of cash. So you have the star and the cash cow. So high market share, high growth rate, so it is a star. If it has a low market share but high growth rate, so it's the question mark. If it has a low growth rate and high market share, it is a cash cow. And if it has a low market growth and low market share, so it belongs to the dog symbol. So what to do with the dog? So we have to sell it or stop its operations. And then the cash cow, so the cash generated from the cash cow businesses or products will be used to fund the question mark ng mga business or products, and also to fund the star ng mga products or businesses. So question mark, it must be invested, otherwise the question mark will turn into a dog nga type sa business or product. So that's how we use the BCG growth share matrix. So what are the characteristics of successful strategic plans? So the strategic plan should be an ongoing process. So dili lang na siya once a year or once every 5 years or once every 10 years. It should be updated continuously. So if there are changes within the year, so we have to update the strategy. So second characteristic, the strategic plan must be integrated throughout the organization. So it must not be a secret. So it should be shared among all people, especially those who are implementing the strategy. The strategic plan, so all the assumptions or former assumptions should be challenged. So in coming up with strategic plan, we have used a lot of assumptions. And these assumptions are usually mga historical events or mga current events. So we have to challenge it all the time because not all events that happened in the past will still continue to happen in the future, and not all things that happen in the future happen in the past. Then you have the strategy should be long term in nature. So the impact of the strategies should not only affect the temporarily or short term, but the impact of the strategy should be felt in many, many years to come. Then you have another characteristic. So the employees at all levels should have an input or have a say in the strategic planning process. So if their inputs are being asked, so they may own or they will feel nga they own the strategy and they have the responsibility to implement the strategy. And the strategy should be communicated clearly and often. So klaro dapat ang strategy, masabtan sa tanan, and it should be communicated often to everyone in the organization. So the reason why we need to communicate clearly and often is because the success of the strategy lies in the execution. So, maski maayo pa imo pagka-formulate sa strategy, if dili maayo pagka-execute, so useless. Okay? So, last characteristic, so the strategic planning process should be viewed as an opportunity to develop a shared vision, increase the sense of joint ownership among the staff, and build a leadership team that is focused on moving the business in the right direction. Now let's discuss what are the benefits and limitations of planning. So start first with the benefits. So number one, so objectives are formally expressed and methods of attaining the objectives are clearly defined. So if you have plans, so the actions of the employees and managers becomes more focused, becomes more committed towards achieving the objectives or the vision and mission. Second benefit, so if the plans are communicated properly throughout the organizations, so the employees feel they are more motivated to take part in carrying the strategies. Third benefit, so when the planning is done in advance, so if you plan ahead, the risk and uncertainty can be minimized, so especially if there are backup plans, and decisions can be made in a measured, disciplined manner rather than spontaneously or based on instinct and uh, hunch. Planning can also improve the company's competitive advantage. So the company can plan ahead and find the best prices for resources it needs, and it can use those resources more effectively, leading to reduced cost and higher profitability. So kinsa to'y who will move first usually and who will succeed. So katong mga companies that plan ahead usually have the best I can have the best data, and since they have the best data, then they can make the best decision. Planning helps the company to efficiently effect changes in the procedures, product line, and facilities. So the planning can also increase the efficiency of the organization. And planning provides the objectives against which actual performance can be measured, facilitated controlling. So for example, an example of a plan is the budgets. So the budgets can also be used as a performance evaluation tool or can be used to measure the the results or the actual results from planning. So it serves not only as a planning tool but a control and performance evaluation as well. So we have the three limitations of planning. So although we have lots of benefits, but planning is not without its cost or without its mga resources nga i-give up. So first, planning is time consuming and costly. So it needs a series of meetings, especially when the company comes up with their strategies or strategic planning. So it will consume more time. So since it is usually uh, done after work, so the company have to pay mga overtime pay and then more food. So because of the meetings, so it becomes costly. Second limitation of planning is if we follow the plan too rigidly, it can cause the business to be unable to adapt to new threats. So kung sige pog follow ang company sa plan, they become not flexible. Okay? So sometimes the business needs to be flexible so that they can adapt to the new threats or they can counter those threats and take advantage of the new opportunities. And then last limitation of planning is it is based on forecast. So the forecast may be inaccurate. So remember that the forecasts are based on the historical events or historical figures, or probably it is based on a future uncertain event that may or may not happen. So it will cause the the forecast to be inaccurate. So if the forecasts are inaccurate, then it might lead to wrong decisions. However, despite of the limitations, so we can still say that uh, the benefits of planning outweighs the its cost. So that is why it is still recommended for business to plan. Okay, so just a recap of what we have discussed this evening. So we begin with the other planning tools and techniques. So the situation analysis using the PEST analysis, and then you have the competitive analysis, the use of the contingency planning and scenario planning, the product life cycle, the use of the BCG consulting group, growth share matrix, characteristics of the successful strategic plans, the benefits of planning, and then the limitations of planning. Okay, so I'm done with the discussion, so please feel free to ask questions and clarifications. Okay, questions? All right, so by the way, this is our last nga online meeting. So we're done with all the coverage for this subject, strategic management. Okay, so next this month, so I will give you activities to work on. So you will come up with the strategic plan. So I hope nga you have already the business nga inyong gikuan for you to study. So next week would be the your exam. So prelim and midterm exam. So bali isabay na nako ang prelim ug midterm. Pero isa ra ka exam na siya. So I hope you're okay with that. Kay I think we are already weeks late para sa prelim. And then midterm is already coming. So ako na lang siyang iisa. If that is okay. Okay, so pila ka items. So I have not yet decided sa number of items but uh, the exam would be good for 2 hours siguro. Okay. Okay, so are you okay? Okay, so the coverage would be from the start until the last niya online class nato. I have already uploaded the online classes. I will also upload the PowerPoints. Okay, so if there are no more questions, clarifications, so I think that's all for today. So good luck on your exams next week. So thank you for attending and listening to our discussion tonight. Okay, so thank you and good night.